Hey everyone, it's Friday. This week is storytelling week, so let's all have a drink together and I'll tell you a story. I have never been a great storyteller, but someone who is a great storyteller is my grandmother. My grandmother used to tell me all kinds of stories, fairy tales, fantasy stories, folk stories, and most important of all, mythology stories from the Norse mythology. One story in particular is very special to me and my grandmother because we share the same name, and the story is about a goddess with our name, Idunn. First of all, I'm going to talk about this Norse mythology if you've never heard about it before. It's basically just the old religion that old Germanic Norse people had. They had many gods and many stories about those gods. You might recognize some of them. Thor, the thunder god. Odin was the alpha god, if you may. And Loki, who is a very important character to the story that I'm going to tell. But I'm going to pronounce the names as I feel are correct in the Icelandic way. So I will say Loki instead of Loki, just so you know. This story starts like many stories start. Loki had gotten himself into trouble. Understand that Loki wasn't a bad person, or I don't think he was. He just had a knack for getting himself into bad situations, and he also had a knack for being very selfish. He had gotten himself into a pickle with a frost giant called Thiassi. Thiassi demanded that Loki would bring him Idunn, and Loki accepted. So Idunn was out in the woods picking apples. Idunn's apples had very special powers. She gave them to the gods, and they became young again. That's why she was the goddess of eternal youth. Loki came up to her and told her that he had found a spot in the woods with much, much better apples than hers, and that she should come with him and they should compare her apples with the new apples that he had found. And she accepted and walked with him somewhere away from everyone where Thiassi was waiting for her, and he snatched her away and brought her home with him. Now here's where the story gets a bit weird. The thing is, Thiassi takes her and makes her basically just do everything for him, probably be his wife or whatever. We don't really want to think too much about it. But the thing is that you'd think that the gods would just be really angry and go and get her right away, especially her husband, because Idunn did have a husband. His name was Bragi, and he was the god of prose. But no, the gods didn't realize until they got old. And when they got old, they were like, where is Idunn? Where are her apples? And that's when they started thinking, hey, we haven't seen her for a while. Loki. And of course, as always, whenever something went wrong, it was Loki's fault. And he confessed. I confess, I gave her to Thiassi. They were very angry with him, and they decided that because it was his fault, he should go get her back. So one of the other goddesses, Freya, lends Loki a body of falcon that she owned. He puts on the body and turns into a falcon, and he flies away over to where Thiassi lives. Thiassi, he was out fishing or doing some duties, and Idunn was alone at home cleaning. He flies down, and just before he snatches her, he turns her into a nut and picks her up and flies away with her. Thiasse returns home shortly afterwards and sees that Idunn is missing. He looks up to the skies and he sees the falcon with the nut, and he realizes what's happening. He turns himself into an eagle and flies away after them. When Loki returns with Idunn, the other gods see that Thiasse is following them, and they decide to make a big fire. The falcon is small enough to skim right over the fire and land down, but the eagle flies straight into the fire and is burned to death. End of story.